My name is Siddika Gulamhusein and I currently work at the Al-Khoury Foundation. I lived in Mombasa, I grew up there, and I moved to the United Kingdom about six years ago. I have a very strong passion for traveling. I love traveling because it opens my mind, it opens my heart, and it allows me to appreciate the diversity that Allah has brought into this world. He created us of nations and people with different cultures and languages purely for us to get to know each other. And what better way to know each other than to travel to each other's countries, learn about their cultures, their diversity, and understand our commonalities. I love to travel. You know, I feel like by traveling, I get to leave my footprints all across the world. Every country I go to, I take something from there, and I like to think that I leave something behind for people that I've met and places that I've been to. I also get to see the world in a different way, like with a new, fresh pair of eyes, you could say. It's just like a new life. It's like you're being born again in another place with new people, in a way. I also feel like by traveling, I get to step outside of my comfort zone and face different challenges, you know, come across all types of people that you learn to communicate with and live amongst. My recent travel to China and trek the Great Wall of China, which was an amazing experience, it kind of made me realize that in life, language is not a barrier at all, neither is culture, because even though you don't speak the same language as these people, I don't speak any Chinese, obviously, I was somehow able to connect with these people. I felt like we had so many shared values and so many commonalities with these people. And I feel like this sense of humanity being just one type of people is slowly being forgotten, because we're focusing on the differences, the language barrier, the culture barrier, how diverse and different we are, which we are. And I think that's something that we should actually embrace and focus on, rather than just look at how different we are. I mean, we need to realize how similar we are with each other and how we have this commonality of humanity. I don't think we should ever let that be forgotten. I try to connect spiritually to very holy personalities on a daily basis. I think we're really blessed, alhamdulillah, that we have the Imams and the Prophets who act as role models and guidances for us. And I feel like we have so many lessons to learn from them. And I personally try to take their life stories and implement them in my life in some way. So, for example, when I went for Hajj and I climbed the cave, to climb the mountain to get to the cave that the Prophet had his revelation revealed to him. The whole time I was climbing that mountain, I kept thinking of Bibi Khadija. You know, I thought to myself that this woman who wasn't young at that point, she used to climb this mountain every single day just to feed the Prophet, to give him water. And I thought to myself that this is probably the purest form of love that I've ever even heard of. I mean, this beats any story or fairy tale that you'll ever come across. And I kept thinking to myself that somehow I feel like this world lacks in that type of love. Because obviously it wasn't easy to climb the mountain. I mean, they've made it into steps so that you can just climb and get to the cave. But it was difficult, no doubt. I mean, I was struggling myself. And when I think of her, I just think that she was so strong and so brave to do that every single day for the Prophet, that kind of love is what inspires me. And I do like to believe that if we could act as representatives and embody the qualities that she had, then maybe one day we can try to be even just a fraction of what she was. So, apart from just visiting the cave, obviously being in the vicinity of Masjid al-Haram and the Masjid al-Nabawi of the Prophet, and knowing that this is the place that Islam was born. This is history. I mean, these are the places I hear about when I heard about when I was a kid, and now I'm standing here. I mean, my whole life I would pray towards this direction, and then now I'm actually standing at the very place praying to the holy Kaaba that I've imagined my whole life. I mean, it was an amazing experience, just connecting with the place spiritually and knowing what took place in this vicinity was just, it changes you. You know, it makes you think that, wow, like my whole life, I've lived my life a certain way, but what am I doing for this religion that I've come to honor and bless and to learn from? And I feel like my personal experience of Hajj was life-changing. It gave me this motivation to just go back to my life, because, you know, they say your Hajj actually begins when you go back home. I mean, it's normal, it's easy to just be part of Hajj while you're there, but when you go back home and you go back to your daily life and your daily routine, what's important is to try to take the values and the lessons that you learned in Hajj, the way you connected with people in Hajj from different countries, again, people who don't speak the same language as you, people who come from completely different backgrounds, and you try to find a way to connect with them while you're in Hajj, and then you go back to your life and you come across people who are so different from you on a daily basis, and it just makes you think that, you know, I was standing shoulder to shoulder with someone who I didn't know, someone who's completely different color, different race, different background from me, and yet you felt a sense of belonging with them. And I think it's important to take small lessons like that back to our daily lives and implement them wherever we go. One of the experiences or incidences that I can relate to in my life and think about when talking about spiritual experiences is a trip to Ziyarah to Karbala that I went last year. I was in the shrine of Imam Hussein on a Thursday evening, and I was sitting there by myself. Obviously, there were so many people around me, but I was on my own, and I was reaching into my bag to take out my Quran to read some Quran while I wait for Maghrib prayer. And I saw a piece of paper that was folded and kept on my bag by the zipper. I didn't think much of it. I opened it, I thought it was someone else's, and I asked everyone around them if it was theirs, but no one claimed it to be theirs. So I put it in my bag, and then when I went back to the hotel after, I consulted one of the scholars that was in our group, and I asked him, I gave him the paper and I said, you know, what does this mean? What's written on it? And when he read it, he translated it. It turned out to be a verse from the Holy Quran. It was from Surah Al-Yunus, verse number 64. And the verse reads that they shall have good news in this world's life and in the hereafter. There is no changing in the word of Allah. This is the mighty achievement. So it was a very positive verse, and I consulted quite a few different scholars just to ask them for their opinion, because I didn't know if it meant anything. I didn't know if I should take it to be something of a coincidence, or, you know, who put the paper there? Why was it there in the first place? Is Allah sending me a sign somehow? I didn't know what to think of it. So most of the scholars that I consulted, they told me that because it's a holy place and it's the Holy Quran, these are the most blessed words in the world, they told me that even though the mystery will never be solved, how the paper got there, why it's there, but they definitely advised me to take this as a motivation for myself to be better. I mean, although the verse isn't for me, I felt like I could use the verse to make myself better, to motivate me to do better, and mainly to just make sure that everything I do is to please my Lord in this world and in the hereafter. When I think about Imam Hussein, I don't even know where to begin or where to end. So many different words just come to my mind, and the minute I hear his name or I say his name, I feel this heaviness in my heart, and it reminds me of my walk from Najaf to Karbala. So the minute I got into the vicinity of Karbala, I felt this heaviness. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I just felt so depressed and so sad and so covered with grief. I just felt like, you know, you could feel the sense of sorrow as you walk into that land. For me personally, I felt my mood completely changed just when I got close to the vicinity of Karbala. And when I talk about what Imam Hussein means to me, honestly, I could talk forever. There's so many stories, so many examples, so many qualities about him that stand out and that have inspired me personally. But I'll just share one, which I think is of utmost relevance. And so when Imam Hussein left from Mecca to Iraq, and he was intercepted by the army of Hur, who had 1,000 of his soldiers, at that point they were on the verge of death because they had no water, no food. They were literally on the brink of death. And at that point, their army was at the weakest. Okay, so instead of exploiting and taking advantage of their weakness, Imam Hussein told Abu Fadl Abbas to quench their thirst. And it just makes me think that, what kind of person is this? Like, where do you hear about an army who's so weak and could be exploited by the opponent, but if anything, they actually do the complete opposite thing that anyone in a military position would do. And I think to myself that he was there giving water to his enemy, but when it came to his thirst, who was there to help him? And it's a personality like that, like Imam Hussein. I believe that if people from around the world, like world leaders, if you think about the things that are going on in the world right now, so many people could learn from his akhlaq. And if anyone tried to just take this little concept of Imam Hussein of not exploiting his enemy, and obviously in the end eventually he forgave Hur for he accepted him and welcomed him with open arms. Even leaving that aside, just the fact that he didn't exploit his enemy, if anyone in the world tried to implement this, I think the world would be such a different place. I think the world would just be so happy. Imam Hussein has the ability to bring out this goodness in human beings. The way he stood up for justice and oppression is something that I think we all need to really implement in our lives. And I think that we also need to focus on taking Imam Hussein out of just our Husseinias, bringing him to the wider community and wider population. And subhanAllah, I've seen all these beautiful campaigns of Who is Hussein and so on, who have done this and brought Imam Hussein to other religions and communities. My work at Al-Khouy Foundation involves representing the Al-Khouy Foundation at the Human Rights Council in Geneva. I attend the Human Rights Council 3 times a year, and I organize the sessions. So we prepare oral interventions, written interventions, and we host side events at the UN. When I first did my first oral intervention, it was about Shia discrimination. And when I walked into the council, where obviously you have member states and different organizations and hundreds of people sitting there, and I knew I was about to deliver my speech in a couple of minutes, the first thing I thought of was Sayyida Zainab. And I thought to myself that this woman had so much courage. She was able to speak out in the courtyard of Yazid around people who not only did they not deserve to be in her presence in the first place, but they didn't even deserve to hear her voice or even hear about the beauty that comes from within her. And yet she was able to do it with so much courage and articulacy. She was so eloquent in the way she spoke and the things that she said. And for me, that's what made me think, okay, she was a woman, I could definitely be inspired by her. And I was. And I thought to myself that these people, these people that are going to listen to my statement, they don't know me. I don't even know if they care about Shias or not. They just see a woman with hijab. I'm not sure what their perception of that's going to be. But I didn't care about that. I just thought that, no, if Sayyida Zainab could do that, the least we can try to do is do a fraction of what she did. And after I did my statement, I felt like it was because of her strength. The fact that I thought about her strength and I tried to take from her is what gave me the courage to speak and deliver my statement. A lot of my other statements were to do with minorities in Iraq that are suffering at the hands of ISIS, and other events that are taking place in the world, like the destruction of sacred sites in other countries, destruction of churches, mosques, synagogues, and so on. So we try to raise awareness not just for the Shias, but obviously other religions as well. And an important thing that always stands out for me is that I relate all my work to Imam Hussein. So when Imam Hussein's army was consisting of 72 people, he was a minority against his opponent, against the army of Yazid. And I feel like that gives me the motivation to speak up for minorities that are suffering right now in the 21st century. Obviously, there's similar things going on in the world. People are suffering tremendously, and I feel like I have to be a voice for these people in any way that I can be. And whenever I think to myself if it's effective or not, I mean, is it really going to make a change or make a difference? At the end of the day, even if it doesn't, at least I'm there to say what I have to say. And this, because the same way that Imam Hussein stood up against oppression and injustice, I feel like it's my duty as a human being, as a Muslim and as his follower, primarily obviously just being a human being, because it's a sense of humanity, to make sure that I stand up for these people as much as I can. And when I think about whether it's really going to make a change or not, I think about Sayyida Zainab again, and how her sermon completely changed the minds of many people who previously thought that Imam Hussein was in the wrong. And then after her sermon, you know, they knew really what was going on and what happened. And to me, even if it doesn't make much of a change, at least one person can hear my words and think about them. So for example, after my statement, I came across a representative from the Vatican, and he came up to me and he said to me, you know, finally someone is standing up for the Shias. And when he said that, I felt quite happy, because first of all, he wasn't even a Shia, he was a Christian from the Vatican. And the fact that he acknowledged the plight of the Shias, and the fact that he thought that the Shias need to be talked about and acknowledged, that the discrimination they're facing needs to be heard by the whole world and has to be addressed, I mean, that meant something to me. So just the fact that he heard it and he was quite happy that someone was standing for the Shias, it gave me that motivation to continue and go further. In the end, I just pray that the work we do is fruitful and for the rights of not just minorities in Iraq, but obviously across the whole world, are protected. I highly recommend and encourage people who have similar interests, similar passions, a skill that could contribute to our work, to obviously get involved, because there's not enough voices out there. And I think the more voices we get, the louder we'll become. And essentially, I think that's what's important right now. My goal in life is to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I believe that there are so many different ways of pleasing Him, of seeking close proximity to Him. For me, it's through different things. Traveling, in a way, is one of them. The work that I do with human rights is also another way of fighting for human beings, because ultimately they are His creations and they deserve to be protected completely. In the end, all I wish for is for humanity to come together. I know it's kind of fairy tale like to say that we want the world to become a better place and we want change, and essentially that's what we all want. But I do think it's possible, because there is hope left. And when we think about the holy personalities that we have, I think they give me a sense of hope. For me, I use Imam Hussein as an example of hope, because on his deathbed he had 72 followers, and today, look at the world. I mean, you have millions flocking to him every year, every few months. I don't think there'll ever be a day where the name of Imam Hussein is not mentioned. Essentially, I think the most important thing is for us to come together on the basis of our humanity and have our voices come together so that we're louder and stronger. And this way, when our holy awaited Savior Imam Mahdi comes, we can welcome him with open arms, and we can be amongst his Ansar.